Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor and today we're talking about how you can maximize the value of every single visitor to your website by investing in the way your cars and your stock are presented. Now on the show today we've got GardX Advantage SpinCar, and to discuss this topic a little bit more is Billy Coutin, Director of GardX Advantage, and Ben Cooper, EMEA Director of SpinCar. Gentlemen, can we just start with what SpinCar is, how you work in the industry, and specifically how you work in the UK, because it's a global operation, really, isn't it? The SpinCar brand.
Yeah, no, thanks, James. Let me take that first one. So thanks for the introduction there. And before anyone else says it, yes, this is Bill and Ben. So I'll get the gag in before anyone else does on that one.
I hadn't sussed that at all, but thank you.
So yeah, as James says, I'm responsible for SpinCar's international business. We are a US founded company. We've been in business now for 6 years. But we do work in, we have clients in 30 different international markets, and we work across retail, wholesale, and some, other bases, insurance, auction, and so forth. We're actually the patent holder for the 360 imagery product. That's where the SpinCar company name came from. But really over the last 6 years, we've been building out a full digital merchandising platform, which really looks to help with all aspects of the car buying journey, for shoppers that are spending, as we all know, the majority of their time researching and purchasing cars online. And James, to your point, I think obviously COVID has accelerated that, but these were already trends that were pretty firmly, established in the industry. Outside of North America, we go to market through distribution partners. And as you mentioned, in the UK, we partner with Billy and his team at GardX.
Yeah. I mean, on that point of COVID and everything, I mean, I think the topic of video and 360-degree video was one of the first sort of big things that I sort of got involved with when I joined the industry over 10 years ago. And then it was very much a new thing. Dealers have been sort of slowly sort of adapting to it, haven't they? But I mean, this year it's catalyzed it to an unbelievable scale, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly as this whole shift to online happens, it's definitely a core part of how dealers are going to trade and transact, and how they're certainly going to merchandise their vehicles. And thanks very much, James and Ben, for your introductions. And just to pick up from where Ben and yourself, James, left off, we've been partnered with SpinCar now for well over 3 years. And the main reason that we chose to do so, obviously, because we come from a background in F&I products. We recognized the industry shift to online and identified the threat to our core business, and realized that our F&I products needed to be merchandised in different areas of the consumer journey. Digital merchandising for us was initially just an upsell, but now it's become really a core part of why and how we win business. If you take some of the recent large OEM wins that we've had in our insurance business, certainly the feedback that we had was that our offer became so much more compelling due to the fact that we were talking about and providing these digital merchandising technologies. So I just wanted to kind of position that's why we walk down this path now, and how we see the fit between what is traditionally an F&I based business to now a digital online merchandising provider as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, can I just pick up on something you said there, which is about digital merchandising? Ben, are you able to explain what that term is and what does it mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think obviously there's a lot of press at the moment around digital retailing, and digital retailing, at least how I think about it, is right at the bottom of the funnel. It's the outcome, it's the buy button, it's all those parts of the digital experience that are about facilitating the transaction. But if we think about the consumer journey, to actually get to a point where customers feel comfortable at scale transacting online, you've got to give them all the information that they need to make that kind of purchase. As you know, this is probably for most people at least, the second most expensive thing that they'll buy. And to make that decision online, they have to be able to feel comfortable that they've got all the information to do that. Now, merchandising is really about kind of, you know, fulfilling that need. And it's not just about imagery. It's about all those things that are important in the sales process. It's about accessorization. It's about finance and insurance. It's about exact specifications, you know, what comes with this vehicle. And Billy mentioned this before, you know, the buying experience with new cars, you know, there's beautiful merchandising techniques around that. You get all these kind of cool technologies around virtual reality, augmented reality, new car configurators. But in the used car space, you know, oftentimes, you know, cars are represented and the features, etc., with pretty kind of static lists. And that's where, you know, we believe as a company, we can help the industry bring vehicles to life more to facilitate that kind of consumer purchase path.
Yeah. And just so, Billy, just before I turn to you, there's something I just wanted to pick up on there is the fact that, you know, we've got to remember that just because a used car buyer is interested in a used car, it doesn't necessarily mean they haven't been dreaming, they haven't been looking at new car websites. And I think it's understandable to expect a used car buyer to expect a similar level of product presentation in the used market as they get in the new market, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and really that's probably one of the core driving reasons behind launching our new product, which is Feature Tour. One of the core challenges that we feel facing retailers at the minute when selling used cars in an online space is exactly that. They get such a rich experience in terms of feature level detail when shopping for a new car. Take, for example, I was looking at a Volvo the other day, and I came across an option that I hadn't heard of before, which was called Bliss. Now, one quick look on Volvo's new car configurator told me that Bliss means blind spot monitor. Now, I've been in the auto sector my whole life, and that wasn't necessarily clear to me until I'd done that research. You take a consumer that's shopping for a vehicle every 3, 4, maybe 5 years, they're going to have even less of an idea about what certain features on a vehicle actually are. As it turns out, Volvo's Bliss is a great feature. It's their version of blind spot monitor. I myself do a lot of motorway miles, or I used to do a lot of motorway miles, and that's definitely a feature that I'd like on one of my cars. But the challenge when buying used is that this is, and again, to Ben's point before, this is normally just one word or single line descriptions. And really modern day cars are so complex and jam-packed with technology that really requires far better explanation for customers to really understand it, and then more importantly, to place value on those features. The issue here with the customer not placing any value on said feature is that then they just start reverting to shopping on price. So it's really important for dealers to utilize the correct tools to fully merchandise their inventories to ensure they don't miss out on the opportunity to demonstrate true value to their customers. And we think that at the minute there's a slight disconnect when, like you say, customers will look at both new car experience and used car experience. And it's important to try and bridge that gap and give them some level of consistency in terms of the journey that they go through when looking at new and looking at used cars.
Yeah. And I mean, it's only a thing that's going to potentially get worse, isn't it? I mean, the level of standard equipment, of safety equipment, is growing all the time, isn't it? Because, you know, a lot of newer cars have got to have lots of safety systems, and there's all sorts of different acronyms which they've got to use to get through the safety process, to get the top marks in crash tests. And of course, these cars filter down to the used market, and the used car buyer can be very bewildered at times about all of this stuff, can't they? So, Ben, can I just turn to you now? About 360-degree imagery. Now, there are lots of companies that offer a similar level, similar feature. What differentiates your product?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because you're right. I think, you know, there's a lot of companies that have imagery based products. And when SpinCar was founded 6 years ago, you know, I think that before my time in the company, I think the founders looked at the car buying journey from an imagery perspective, right? You could go online and you can buy a pair of jeans or a shirt, and you can have a much more kind of interactive experience discovering like product than you could in the automotive sector. But the path to purchase in automotive is much more complicated than buying a pair of jeans or a shirt. You know, there's many other considerations. So whilst 360 and imagery is a core part of what we do, it is only one part of merchandising, you know, and I think probably to answer your question, James, from a differentiation perspective, where we've evolved the product set to take into account things as Billy outlined, with you know the ability to merchandise features, to explain features, so dealers don't suffer from margin compression in negotiation, the ability to kind of explain the finance and insurance products, which are often kind of, you know, hugely important part of the kind of the used car profitability operation. You know, we're looking at the kind of car buying journey from kind of start to finish, if you will, and building out a suite of tools to essentially kind of, as I say, hopefully, you know, support our clients in terms of how they bring those cars to market. And you know, one of the other things that I think differentiates us within all of those kind of interactions that we see, there's a huge data asset that gives off that we can then kind of further leverage around kind of nurturing leads throughout the funnel.
Brilliant. Okay, Billy, I mean, the same thing to you, really. I mean, how have you found that the product is different from other competitors?
Yeah, really good point, and thanks for the question. And just really to add on what Ben's already gone through, we've continued to build on our core imagery products specifically for the UK market. So in addition to Spin, our clients use things like damage tagging functionality, which enables you to bring transparency to vehicle defects. That might be small cosmetic repairs that are required. That may be more larger accident damage, that kind of stuff. Especially important in the auction sector. Very important to be clear and transparent with customers when buying from auction online. We've introduced tools like automated background removal, background replacement within static images, which is great to ensure things like busy forecourts and people walking in the background don't detract from the vehicle, but also things like OEM specific image guidelines. Really important that for a dealer to maintain consistency through those image sets. One of the other things that we think is key to remember in embedding 360 within a retail operation, and certainly what we feel is a differentiator from a GardX side of things, is that it's often a large process change to embed a new imagery solution within a dealership. One of the core competencies at GardX has always been about managing and training for process change within a dealership. Traditionally, yes, that's been to sell more F&I based products, but we think it lends itself perfectly to embedding ourselves into a retail operation to train for things like SpinCar 360. And so really that's just been added as an extension to that. And we feel that's a critical factor in getting the best quality output out of the technology, but also what we feel differentiates us and our offering.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we've discussed what the product is and how it's different from other competitors. Let's talk about the benefits to the dealers who are watching this. They want to know exactly what the benefits to them are. So Ben, question to you.
Yeah, and I think we think of this in terms of two levels. There's the kind of the individual products that we bring to market, 360 feature tool. Each of those, you know, we can certainly share kind of information on benefits, but when you roll them all up, all those products together in terms of the data, there's a platform benefit there that we can touch on as well. You know, certainly from a 360 perspective, you know, what we're really trying to achieve with this product in the retail space is helping customers learn about the vehicles. And the best way to measure that is by looking at the time they spend engaging with those vehicles on the vehicle detail pages, you know, how they interact, the hotspots that they look at, how they discover the vehicle. And we typically see like a 25% increase in that kind of website engagement time. As a consequence of that, we see up to kind of like a 30% lift in conversion rate. And when we talk about conversion rate, that's form fills, it's lead submissions, you know, engagement with kind of finance tools, calculators, all those other things that exist on the dealer's websites, kind of, you know, help the customer go to that kind of next step, if you will. As part of what we do, obviously, not just putting kind of product onto the actual dealer websites, we also put it onto the aggregator or the classified listing websites as well. And we've run A/B tests, you know, across multiple different markets where we see kind of a 70% up to a 70% lift in lead submission rate from those environments as well. And anything up to a 6%, 37% click out from the classified site onto the dealer site. So it's kind of, it's taking that shopper through the purchase funnel, they're learning on the classified site, and then they're moving through more efficiently into the dealer environment.
Yeah,
As it relates to the auction space, I think the KPIs are a little bit different. Obviously, it's a similar, you know, the audience is primarily a kind of a business audience, dealers buying from auctions. But what we're trying to achieve is the same thing, as Billy said, bring in transparency to the vehicles. And as a consequence of that, we're seeing kind of 20% lift in bids per vehicle. And that obviously increases the prices that we achieve, or the prices that the auction achieves for each piece of stock. So I think a big bucket of benefits around 360 is customers. This is what customers expect. There's other industries, the Amazons, the Apples of the world, that have kind of raised the bar on the online consumer experience, and that's our industry challenge to do the same in automotive. The other bucket of benefit with imagery that I would kind of point to is around operational process. So the ability to capture imagery of vehicles and have that imagery on your website or on the classified site, you know, within 15, 20 minutes can be a huge benefit for many dealers, especially where there's kind of, you know, you've got cars that are retail ready, but they're not being marketed online for maybe 4, 5, 6 days. You know, the holding costs associated with a car that's not being marketed are significant. So that's just a few of the things around the 360 benefits.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think with our feature to our F&I products, we've also been able to demonstrate true value to dealers and true benefit, to tangible benefit to dealers. We've been in the F&I space now for 17 years. And one thing that's always been clear and has remained consistent throughout that whole 17-year period is that the earlier in the sales journey an F&I product can be introduced, the more likely a consumer is to buy said F&I product. The challenge that we recognize in today's online market is that oftentimes that the consumer sometimes doesn't find out or hear about those products until right at the end of the buying journey, which is just far too late. You know, they've been online, they've selected multiple different cars, they've made their way through various different classifieds, dealer websites, OEM websites, and they've really funneled their thought process down to maybe 2 or 3 vehicles. And they've had no exposure to the F&I products that specific dealer sells until right at the end of the buying journey, when they've decided on the vehicle, they've organized their finance, and they're starting to engage with the dealer. In order for dealers to protect these margins, which we know that in today's market, and in most cases, they are heavily reliant upon, it's really important for them to move the introduction of these products up the funnel to the initial research phase. The one showroom that will always remain open is the digital showroom. And I think certainly the last few months, what we've been through with COVID has definitely proved that. So we're doing everything that we can to optimize that and maximize the leads that it drives to our clients, and giving them the tools to ensure that they can present these products to their consumers far earlier in that sales journey. In some cases, in dealers that are utilizing these tools that we offer to them, we've seen increases in penetration rates by up to 20% just by using these technologies.
Fantastic. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Ben, on that precise point?
I think the only thing I'd add on that is, like, as I said right at the start of that piece, is like each of these products have their own individual benefits, if you will. They're each tackling a kind of part of that you know, purchase journey, but consumers are leaving their kind of their digital footprint, if you will, all over these retailers' websites. And so, you know, a huge focus for us as a company is making sure that we're we're capturing that data and we're funneling it through, whether that's through to the call center operation, whether that's through to any other techniques where the dealers are kind of reaching out to customers, to make sure that there's a kind of really strong connection between that online experience and then what goes on, you know, offline in terms of that purchase journey. It's really about nurturing that shopper as they move through their shopping experience.
Yeah. No, I think the fascinating thing coming from this discussion is it's this real shift in the idea that a customer looking at a car online, you know, that advert for the car, you know, gone are the days of the advert just being that advert repeated online as opposed to being in print. It's a proper online consumer journey now, and effectively customers are online shoppers, aren't they? And it's this mentality that we've got to shift to, that this is a proper online experience and it's not just an advert that's slung up on the website, is it? So fascinating. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about the car shopper. What do you think what more can be done online to meet the needs of the car shopper, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's a question really, because it's, you know, we kind of as an industry often approach things from a system perspective and how we kind of segment things between sales and after sales. But the reality is, I think for all industries, we're looking at how we service the customer through their life cycle. And, you know, pre-COVID, you know, 70 to 80% of the car buying experience was online. And, you know, as we've talked about today, that's only just been accelerated because of, you know, the pandemic and, you know, unfortunately probably the months to come on this as well for all of us. So the opportunity that I see is to kind of to bridge some of these disconnects. You know, if the customer is completing all of that, you know, pre-discovery, all that research, their understanding about the car, their understanding about the features, the F&I, when they do walk into a dealership or pick up a phone, like the customer doesn't want to start from square one again. And there's a huge opportunity for us as an industry to join the dots on that online experience and the offline experience and make the car buying journey, you know, what it should be, a pleasure. You know, we see so much research around, you know, the challenges that consumers face, but we're seeing all these data signals and where we can harness those. There's some really interesting kind of tactical ways that we can help retailers to help shoppers. And ultimately, I think that's, you know, that's the kind of goal of SpinCar and what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Billy, over to you.
Yeah, and I think it really, just to pick up on Ben's point, and what to me is really a practical example of what Ben's point around leveraging the data is with our retargeting product. We all know how much money dealers and time dealers invest in driving people to their websites, but oftentimes they're doing little to nurture that traffic. Again, we all know that probably somewhere in the region across the industry of about 95% of web visitors don't end up converting. But we also know that from a consumer's perspective, buying a car is a really considered purchase. As Ben mentioned earlier on, you know, it's the second largest purchase that someone will make. So it is a very considered purchase. Given the fact that we collect a lot of that front end data on a consumer from the second they arrive on a dealer's website, we're able to really intelligently retarget that customer based on their behavior on the website and help our retailers bring those high intending shoppers back to the site, which I think is good for both the consumer and the retailer, because consumers can be overwhelmed by when searching for a vehicle, that they've got so much access to a whole wealth of different vehicles out there now, and they find one that they're interested in, or they're not necessarily quite sure what they're interested in. But a lot of those data signals that they can give to us on a website then makes it our job to provide the right tools to bring that consumer back and put them into a vehicle that they are genuinely interested in and fits their current requirements.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think we're going to have to leave it there for today, I'm afraid. For dealers who want to find out a little bit more, we'll put the contact details in the story where this video is going to be hosted. But thank you, gentlemen. That was a really interesting discussion. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, James. Thank you.
Well, if you'd like to be involved in a Car Dealer Live just like this one, then please do email me, james.batchelor@blackbullmedia.co.uk. But for today, thanks very much for watching indeed, and see you soon.